Welcome to the Farmstead Revival, the tale of two sisters, and those two sisters happen to be me, Janelle Anderson, as well as my littlest sister, Trudi Skedsvold. We are so thankful that you are here and listening, and we can't wait to share today's topic. Today is all about making an income on the farm, the homestead, whatever you guys want to call yourselves. If you're homesteaders, farmsteaders, farmers, ranchers, it's fine. But I think we can all have the common theme, which is that we hope to have a profit. We hoped that what we're doing here isn't going to cost our family more money than we are getting out of it. And yes, there are things that you can get out of it as far as producing a clean food source for your family and then hopefully your community past that. We want to share a little bit of our experience of ways that we have made income on the farm because I think it's a very important subject for us all to talk about. So Trudi, you want to kick this off?
I suppose I could, but I think that kicking it off should go back from the start.
Yeah, that's a great place to go.
Always got to go back from the start. From the start would be North Dakota. Both of us were in North Dakota, and obviously our income looked a lot different than it does now.
Way different.
Way different.
And why is that?
Because we had an established place. I mean, we had an established ranch that me and Eric had. And then Eric also had a trucking business that he was doing in the oil field. And so those were two incomes, big incomes that kind of helped keep us on top and keeping us going, I guess you would say. And then
I think part of this is that we hope that people would realize that a lot of the people who are in the agricultural industry have jobs off of the farm, off of the ranches, so that they can support and continue doing what they're doing. And I'm glad that we get to talk about that a little bit, because for us personally, we ran my husband's family's business off of the ranch, and we also ranched in cow-calf operation, beef cattle. And so all of those things combined are what earned us income at that point. And so we were producing food for other people, just in a different way inside of the system. So when we had calves that were weaned, we sent them through the sales ring. Then people purchased them and then sent them to a feedlot or wherever to feed them out. And then it went to customers all over the United States.
And then we did the same thing with the bison. So what we would do is we would raise up the babies, and then we would wean them, and we would take them off the mama cows, bison cows, and we would find places to outsource or sell those calves. Luckily for us, a lot of our calves, or at least half of our calves, actually just went like a couple miles down the road. And so our neighbor, he actually had a feedlot where he fed out cows and he fed out bison, which was really nice for us to just be able to be like, hey, you want to buy these? And he would just come and pick them up, and it wouldn't be very far. And he's actually the same one that helped us with butchering too. Awesome guy. We absolutely love him. He probably is one of like our fondest memories back in North Dakota. So we would sell them. We would also sell them to other feedlots in South Dakota. There was places more in North Dakota, and then I think that was probably the furthest that we actually went. I know that when we finally sold all our animals, we went further than that. I mean, there was people coming from Texas to get the buffalo cows.
For sure. Yeah. So you can't overlook that we mostly sold our steers through the sales ring. Heifers, if we liked them, we liked the way they looked, we would keep them. We would raise them as replacement heifers for ourselves. Or if we decided that, we could let a few go, then we would sell them to other customers. But the majority of our income, if we're talking just the ranch, was on selling cattle. And that's it. And it wasn't direct to consumer at that point either. And a lot of people are that way. And so it's just important that we lay that for you, that most of our income came from directly selling our beef, our bison to other people, other producers in some way, some shape or form.
Right. The only other thing is that we had pigs. We had butcher pigs. I had mentioned it before. We had 86 butcher pigs at one time.
We did not.
She did not. We at that time, we actually were finding people that were interested in buying them. So they would buy them from us. We'd take them to the butcher, drop them off, and then they would pay the butcher for that. So that was actually kind of nice. So that was like, we were growing them for the consumers. And so that was kind of a different aspect of things. It was actually not bad. I actually really enjoyed that. And it was a good side income of sorts on the farm.
For sure. And so for us, one of the things that we got into as we were a few years from leaving North Dakota, obviously we didn't know we were leaving, is that we ended up starting to sell our extra milk from our family milk cow that we were keeping because we had extra milk. I didn't have time to really produce a lot of cheese, and we just had an abundance. And so we started selling our milk to people, and they ended up mostly being from one family, but it was a huge family. Like these parents had, I don't know, there was like 10 kids, maybe not that many kids, but then they had their own families then. And so we sold within that. We dropped 1 day a week, or they came out, one person picked up like the 20 plus gallons that they purchased. And so that was a way that we made income on the ranch that wasn't what we had done before.
So yeah, setting all that up aside, like that was a different setting of things. I mean, it's very drastic when you move to a different place and you have to make all these connections. You have to make all of these things over again. You have to build up something from scratch. And so it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money. I know probably for you, was it a little scary at first?
Oh, absolutely. We left, and I say this boldly, like we left all of our income on the table, as I know you guys did as well, in North Dakota. We left it all. And so coming to Tennessee was very, very scary. Now, I will say that some of the principles and the things that we did back in North Dakota led us to come to Tennessee and not carry debt, which was really, really important for us. And we're grateful that we were able to do that. That's not everybody's story. And it's okay if your story is not like that. And so we had a little bit of less pressure. But after we were established within our house, getting to the point of where we could start to make income off of our farm here was really very important.
Where did you start when you started? Like, what was your first thing to get your money flow coming back in?
Yeah, so we moved here September of 2022, and we first got layer chickens once we had water and stuff that spring, and we brought home 2 family milk cows pretty quickly after that. And so we actually started to sell the milk pretty quickly to our local community. We had to drive a fair distance to drop it every week, but it was pretty cool because we didn't know that many people, and it was a way for us to expand our community and for people to get to know us and what we were going to offer in the future. And then we did.
Hold on, wait. So they didn't just randomly pull into your driveway and introduce themselves like they do here in North Carolina? I swear. It was like 20 people. They're like, hey, I think it's just they were curious because normally people don't come and move into the North Carolina area right here. It's not a common thing. So, and also having a bison out in the pasture is probably a big talking point for us.
Absolutely. I can understand how people would be like, who are you and what are you doing here? That doesn't happen as much here. I think the area that we're in, people are definitely a little more closed off to themselves, which is fine. But we do have random people that come and say, hey, I heard you have milk. Can I buy milk from you? Which is okay, I guess. Sometimes we're like, who are you? Are you someone that I need to be concerned about as far as like government agencies?
Why are you in the hole? Why are you visiting us in the hole?
Good gravy. But so another thing that we started to do right away and plan for was meat chickens. We wanted to do pasture raised meat chickens, which is actually not something that we did back in North Dakota. We did raise them growing up. It wasn't something that was so foreign to me.
Oh, I just have to add this in here too. I'm just going to keep cutting you off.
Pasture-raised meat birds.
Janelle didn't have chickens for the longest time, and then I remember
in North Dakota.
Yeah, and then at one time she was like, "Hey, can I get some of your chickens?" And I think I gave you like 5 of them or 10. I don't even remember.
She is getting us a little off track, but that is true. Like I wanted chickens because I love chickens. But Ben was like, no chickens, no pigs, no nothing. And so it was a struggle to add on every single animal back in North Dakota. Here in Tennessee, it's been a little bit easier. He's a little more open, but there are definitely things that he is still against. And he was against us getting hogs here on the farmstead, and I had to lay that out, and I can talk about that in a little bit, of what I said to him and why he was convinced that it was okay to do it. But meat birds were a big thing for us. Now, do I want to say that they were a huge source of income at the amount that we are doing and we're doing every year? They're not. You know, there's a lot of labor that actually is involved with them when you are moving them once, twice a day, the feeding of them, the processing, because we processed all of our own meat birds for customers and stuff. And then you have the marketing and you have the advertising, and then you have to like set up deliveries. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And so I don't want to say that it's like a huge source of income, but we definitely made money on it, which I think is what everybody is hoping to do. Now, if we could step into more chickens, that would most definitely help to make more income just by multiplication and math, which I hate, by the way.
Me too.
With that said, I'm just going to be just completely open and honest. This year, we have decided to not raise any other, to not raise pasture-raised meat birds for anybody else. We are experimenting ourselves with our own personal consumption of what we are doing. And so with that said, I don't know if you guys are watching the video, you could see my son walk behind me with a whole bunch of fishing poles. He's going fishing. When we weighed everything out, we've had some changes within our feed situation also. And so we weighed everything. And for this year, we've decided to pause and to experiment, and we'll see where that goes. But meat birds are a great option. If you can find a market for them and you can do all that kind of stuff, I highly recommend that people do that.
What are your future income? What are you on this year? Like what are some of the
so we
things
are probably going to continue minus the meat birds into what we are doing, what we did last year, and we actually don't sell our milk anymore off of the farm here. We keep it all within house, and we use that to diversify and make money that way. And one of those ways is that we have some forest raised pigs that we did before. We did a set of them, and we're going to do another round this year. And what we do is we ferment the feed with the milk. And so that is just one way that we diversify it. But we also raised a lot of bottle calves. We did 7 bottle calves last year with our milk cow's milk, not milk replacer, nothing like that. We utilized what we had. And so we just don't have enough milk left over to even offer it beyond maybe just a couple people.
And like people think, oh, I can go pick up all these calves for cheap. And then they don't think of the fact that they have to buy the milk replacer. And that's where it gets really expensive. Like they think they're going to make a profit at the end. You keep shelling out a bunch of money for that milk replacer. It gets really expensive really fast.
Milk replacer is incredibly expensive. Milk replacer as a whole it comes with a whole set of issues. It's not as nutritious as straight from the cow. And so you have a lot of that kind of stuff to manage with it. And depending on where you're getting your bottle calves from, I mean, the cattle market right now is at an all-time high. And so people are charging accordingly for bottle calves. So you have to think about it. And even, a lot of us, especially in my area, in this homesteading type of lifestyle, maybe have a cross between a dairy cow and a beef cow. And that's what the calf is that maybe they would be getting rid of. Well, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that if you decide to feed that calf out for yourself, maybe for your family, it's going to take longer because of the dairy breed influence to it. But even if you decide that you're going to eventually just sell it, let's say through the sales ring or even just through Facebook Marketplace, though you can't sell animals there, they don't bring as much. You can't take a cross or even a dairy breed. So a cross between a dairy and a beef breed, or just a straight dairy breed, and think that you're going to command what a beef price would be, just because they don't usually have the meat on their bones and they take longer to feed out.
The only circumstance I will say where a beef and a dairy cow are about the same price is if she's in milk. If she's already being milked and stuff like that. I would say that if you look at the milk cows prices, they're more expensive obviously than a beef.
For sure. Like you can get into a lot of money with a milk cow right now, for sure. There are ones that are just not as expensive, but for the most part they would be
around here
higher
it
than
is
the market,
craziness.
Than the beef market. Yeah.
Like we had to drive all the way to Knoxville, Tennessee to get our milk cow, and she's evil.
And you searched.
Yeah, we searched forever.
Whoever she bought him from, whom I know, don't listen to this podcast.
She is not the nicest milk cow.
It's fine. If anybody can handle it, it was meant to be you to handle this cow. Whether you want to or not is another different story, but you can handle it.
Oh, she's terrible. Okay, so you're feeding, or you got those calves that you are are you planning on getting or having
Yeah,
more to feed
we
out?
plan on doing the same thing this year. We just have a plethora of milk that we're going to have, and we'll make what we need. We'll use what we need for our family personally, and then we're going to take it, like I said, and diversify it into other avenues without having to sell off the milk off of the farm to people for consumption. And for me, there was a lot that goes into that. And it's just, at this point, I can take that and make money a different way. And I have a little bit less planning and keeping things straight. And it's less work, to be honest, for me. And
well,
it may not be for anybody else, but like
people
for us personally, that's not where I'm going to invest my time.
Right. People might not understand, but like when you're selling the milk, you have a customer. And so you are working with that customer. You're having to deal with that customer. You have to be professional with that customer. You have to do all of the things
and it's not just one customer usually.
No. And that takes a lot of energy and time. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you are going to sell milk off of your homestead, your farm, I'm just going to give you some advice is make sure that you have dates set up and people know you have boundaries in place that if they come to pick up milk where they can pick it up. I know a lot of people who sell milk off of their homestead or their farm, and the people who come pick up milk know where the fridge is and they know the instructions, and they don't go, I don't want to say bother the farmer, but they don't interrupt them in their daily set of chores that they're doing. And it doesn't mean that we're not wanting to have conversations, but can you imagine if you had 10 people show up throughout the day and each one wants to have a 30-minute conversation with you? That's 5 hours that you're not getting other stuff done. Yeah, Trudi just talked about random people stop in all the time.
Well, I was going to say what we actually have a side business. I won't go into what it is, but they come here to pick up what they come to pick up, and they sit and they talk for 20-30 minutes after they've already gotten what they need to get and should be on their way, but they just like to talk. And so sometimes it's really hard to cut someone off because you want to be nice and you are a nice person. You want to have
those conversations because it's fun. It's good.
You have stuff to do. So it's so hard.
Set boundaries if you're going to sell milk off of your farm and keep them in place. That's all I can just say. And then I'm going to also say and just recommend to you that you price your milk accordingly to your market and your time invested. And milk is a very tricky one to price correctly. But if you ever have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to Trudi or I, and we would love to talk you through that and help you through.
Yeah, milk's
because I think it's a great thing. If you
really
can offer
expensive.
that to your community, it can be absolutely. It's expensive
I know that
to produce.
There's someone, I think it's maybe 25-30 minutes from us. They sell it and it's $16 a gallon.
That's normal.
Normal. That's
16,
normal.
$20 a gallon. Yeah.
Oh, well, I had milk share that I was doing $10 a gallon. I thought that was a lot.
It's hard, I think, because I even with what we're selling off of the farm when it came to meat birds and stuff, I knew that we were not making much of a profit on them, and it would have been great to make even more. But in the same capacity, the internal struggle for me is these people are part of my community, and do I feel good about even though I should?
Right.
And I mean, that's something you wrestle with as an entrepreneur and someone making money off of the farm. And so just know you're going to face that, and you're going to have to answer that, and you're going to have to figure that out if you're okay with it. And there's nothing wrong with it if you figure out that that is the right price and you're going to charge what it costs your family. And I encourage you to do that.
I am one of those people that feel a little guilty sometimes, even though that is the way that it needs to be priced. You can't give everybody a deal because otherwise you're ruining it for yourself in the end. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for me sometimes.
It is hard. It's just something you're going to come face to face with, but I encourage you guys to explore it and walk through all of that emotions.
So for us this year, what we really haven't made a whole lot off of, other than I opened the stable. It was probably about a year ago on the other side of the road. It's funny, the other side of the road.
You guys, just so you know, some of her property is a 2-lane, not a 2-lane highway, just a 2-lane road separates some of their property.
Yeah, we didn't want anybody building across from us is what it was. And so we ended up buying the lot across from us. But it was perfect because I always wanted to teach kids how to ride horses and just all of the things like that. So we bought that, and then I opened a little stable. So I do riding lessons over there. We're planning on building a barn, and we're in the process of, like I said, I think in another one of the other podcasts is where we're talking about doing borders, because we do see that there is a need for places to have horses for people and whatnot. And we have all of that area over there. We have an arena, we'll have a barn, we have all of the things that they would need. So we're already feeding out horses and taking care of horses. It's not going to be a big deal to add 5 more horses. Not a big deal. So that is one of our incomes that we're thinking about doing for 2025. Another one was we are talking about buying some steers and feeding them out. We really like the aspect of feeding them out, because we've had a couple people ask like if we would do that or if we would be interested in doing that. And we just kind of never really thought too much about it, but now we're thinking more about it. The problem is, where is the cow market right now?
Yeah,
super
to
high.
get into those steers is going to cost you a pretty penny. And then what if the market goes down and you can't charge? I mean, like, there's a whole lot that goes into that.
It's a lot. And so we just kind of are toying with that idea, because it's kind of hard to build up your cattle. We'll say we have 1 cow. We have 1 beef cow, 1 Holstein cow, and then we have a buffalo. So that's not really going to build up our steer population anytime soon.
So what do you think that you will do, since that is something, a goal that you're going to do? Like, have you thought about some of the steps you could possibly, can you lay that out for people? Like, what steps could you take possibly to make this work for you to get to have calves to feed out?
Right. So I think for right now, since we're in the idea, like I've said before, is you throw ideas out there and either they're going to stick or they're not going to stick. And sometimes
I'm so thankful that you say that nicely and not swear, because the saying says
sometimes there may be an occasional swear word, but I will not be swearing on here. But yes, no. So we like to just have all these ideas, because if you are so close-minded and you don't have all these ideas, like trying to figure out how to make money on your homestead, you're going to be very limited to what you will be willing to do or what you can do. Like, if you're not coming up with new ideas, we live in America where you have an entrepreneur mindset. Like, you're trying to expand, you're trying to make money. You don't want someone else to be your boss. Like, you're going to try to figure it out. So,
I just want to say, I don't know how much this would resonate with a lot of you, but I think it will, is that many of us are women who are part of this homestead, this farmstead that we're doing, and our husbands are working off of this.
Right.
And I know that in your heart of hearts that you want to have your husband home and be next to you. And so if that's you, I just want you to know that we understand that and we feel that.
Right.
And we know that, we empathize with that. And so these things that we're talking about take work, but the world is your oyster, and your income that you make from or at home, right, on our homes, doesn't have to just come from animals. And I mean, we can't really get into that this time. I want to focus just on livestock and other animals that you can do, but like, just know, like, there are ways to do it. You are not stuck. But if you're not doing what Trudi's talking about, is like continuing to think about it and
outside the box,
outside of the box, being an entrepreneur. Like, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. So no, we want to break it down, like how many we can have. Do we have the right setup for the amount that we want? How much is the feed going to take? Like, how much is each bale going to be? How much do we think they're going to go through? All of those things is something we need to figure out and kind of plan out. And then obviously we're gonna have to look in the market, and we're gonna have to look at how much those steers are going for and plan accordingly to that, and how many we can afford to get at a time or just in general. So we haven't really sat down and kind of thought about those things more in depth, but it's just kind of an idea.
Yeah. Is your pathway ever considering bringing a few more cows home so that they can calve and have calves? Okay. So we wanted to throw that out there and see if that was part of maybe.
So we were really hoping that our milk cow would have had a heifer also, because we would
that's always the hope, and that's not what
she
happens.
had a little steer calf. And then of course the Black Angus had a heifer. So, whatever, take it as it goes. But so we would like to get some more cows eventually. We actually, weirdly enough, we're talking, like I said, bouncing ideas. We were talking about getting bison again. And so we have a lot of land in the trees and whatnot. So there is spots where the trees aren't growing as much as they should. They're kind of stunted. They don't look as good. so we were talking about putting pastures back there and just kind of maybe talking about getting some bison. We had some interest of people wanting to invest in that. So that's another avenue we had talked about doing, and we might get into that. Just have to figure out kind of all the things on that. And then
the infrastructure that comes with raising bison is most definitely heads and tails above what it would be if you brought a beef cow home, just so you all know.
Just so we're clear, bison can scale a fence that's 6 foot tall standing still. I mean, that's you need a lot of fence.
So what Trudi is recommending is that you don't necessarily just go out and think bison can be part of your homestead or farm plan.
I have said to some, I think it was on a group on Facebook, someone asked about bison at one point. I'm all for educating people about bison. I love talking about bison. I could talk about them all day long. If anybody ever has a question about bison or interested in learning about bison, contact me. I don't mind answering questions. I love teaching. We've talked about this before. Teaching is like our core thing. We love doing that. So don't mind contacting me about that. But yeah, so bison, we threw that idea out there, and like I said, we might have investors if we do decide to do that. We also talked about this year getting another sow. We only have one sow right now, so she has had 8 babies 2 times a year. So we just talked about getting another sow, and we already have our boar out there. And then feeding some out for local people if they would be interested in, like we did back in North Dakota. Are we going to have 80 pigs out there? No, I don't ever want to have 80 pigs again. I'm good.
So, you know, I don't want 80 pigs.
When we go into pigs one of these times on a podcast, I could tell you a million stories.
So and we're going to talk pigs.
It may change your mind about pigs just a little bit. So yeah, so we're talked about doing butcher pigs. And then Eric, one of his great ideas, which sometimes his ideas are really amazing and sometimes they're not as great, but this one was a really good one. He got a sawmill, and we have actually most of our acreage is trees. So he got a sawmill.
And they're mostly what variety though?
Oh my gosh.
Pine, right?
They are pine, yes.
Okay.
You put me on the spot, and I was like, I don't even know.
No, that's okay. I know what they are. I'll tell you.
Thank you. Anyway, so Eric got a sawmill, and so people have given him logs, like he's cutting up his own wood. We built our porch off of our camper out of our own wood.
Which sounds so hilarious.
We are redneck. I already said this.
I know, but do you know what you are? You're making it work for what is right for your family in this time. So don't ever apologize for that. But she is my sister, so I can tease her a little bit.
Well, you know, I'm not the only one that lives in a camper with my family. We actually just met someone. I met someone yesterday that came and picked up something, and he said, yeah, we're about to move into our camper with our 2 kids and then build our house slowly, maybe in a couple years.
Camper while we finished our house to inhabitable.
We're going to have a podcast all about that, because I feel like that's kind of a interesting take on things.
It is,
but
for sure.
We're getting sidetracked, so I'm going to continue on. Eric also decided that, he said it to me yesterday, he said, hey, what about hatching out chicks? We hatched out chicks back in North Dakota, and we sold pullets, and I actually sold a lot of pullets back in North Dakota. So
people are always wanting hens that are just about to start laying for the first time. Absolutely. We did that actually the first year. I didn't talk about it, but we did do that. And I asked Ben if we could do it this year, and he told me no. I was like,
so that was another thing that Eric had brought up, and that I was like, that's actually not a terrible idea. We also have down the road on Saturdays, it's called the Flippin' Chicken Auction.
Oh,
yeah.
What a fantastic name.
It is the most craziest thing I've ever been to in my entire life. Like, it just is like,
it's like a flea market for animals, like chicken. An animal swap.
They have goats sometimes. They have all of these animals. They also have like a rummage sale of people's stuff as well. It is the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
I'm not going to say like that, because I've seen that around my area too. Yeah. I think it's the South thing. We had stuff up in like the North like that, but it was maybe once every 3 months or once every 6 months or whatever. But
so this is the first Saturday of every month. And so people sell chickens there, and I didn't actually see a whole lot of pullets. It was more older chickens, and then obviously it was young chicks. And so I think that is another place that we could sell them. Obviously they take a commission of it. So if I could sell them outright around here, I think it'd be better off. So we are talking about doing that, and that's just kind of.
I just thought of something. What? We should do a podcast just on marketing. That's like a whole thing. Okay. So I just wanted to say, for us personally, for beef this year, our plan was to sell beef from all of our calves that were weaned, minus the couple that we were going to keep as replacement heifers to add into our herd. And we went through drought. And so we ended up having to shift. And what we ended up doing was selling quite a few of our weaned calves to other local farms, local homesteads, because they were amazing to be able for them to raise and feed out for their own families. And so that was an avenue where we shifted, but also made income from it. And the ones that we have left that are not going to go back into our herd, we are going to continue to sell beef this year. And so that's really exciting. We have our first 2 that are headed in next month. We were supposed to send one this morning, but we can't get out because it's snow and ice on our
I guess what, it didn't snow here. So
it was really fun. I'm glad it snowed here. Justice, our 4-year-old, enjoyed it very much. So beef is very much part of our income for our place. And I just want to say, for those of you who maybe don't have that much space, number one, if you want to raise up some meat for your family, if we're talking specifically a beef, you can feed out a heifer just like you can feed a steer, and you can eat a heifer. Let's get that clear. But I also recommend.
Just rhymed.
It did? Oh my goodness, I'm so clever. No. But I also just want to tell you that I would recommend that you bring a second one home. There's more than just what I'm about to say to that. They need to have a companion. It's a good thing for them. They are competitive eaters, and they like to see that. They like to have another one that is there with them. With that said, if you bring one home to feed your family and you bring a second one home, that one can cover the cost of feed, and you can sell that to your community and cover the cost of not only how much they cost you to bring them there, both of them, but the feed and all that kind of stuff. So think of that as a way to make money, even if you don't have a bunch of space.
Right. Because I mean, like we could go like a whole thing about marketing type thing. Back in North Dakota, we had pigs that weren't sold right away, butcher pigs. And so I just put it on my Facebook and I said, hey, anybody interested? We have some, contact me. Mm-hmm. They always were sold before the end of the week. And because it would be one person would say something to another person, it just kind of went through like, oh, hey, I saw so-and-so had a whatever for sale. Word of mouth is probably the best way to sell things.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep. So another area that's not livestock is last year I didn't make a ton of income, but I had some extra seedling, like plant starts for my garden that I had started, and I sold those to people, what was extra. And so that's another way that you could potentially make money. Now, don't think that you need to scale up and like grow hundreds of seedlings, but if you have extra, utilize that and to make some income off of the farm.
Yeah, I don't have anything else that I am adding to as of right now, but like I said, we always come up with random things all of the time.
Yeah, this is so random, but I was just talking with a friend about our kitchen island that I designed, and that he sells floor plans for people who are wanting houses built. And he said he shows people that island, and the majority of people he shows it to are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, because the purpose behind it is like 12 foot long by 4 foot wide, and it's dual purpose. It's prep space in our kitchen, on our homestead. We use it, the whole thing, all the time, but we can also eat around it. We don't have another designated kitchen table. And so he shows people it. Well, the whole thing about it is my husband welded the frame for it. Like, he custom built the frame that holds much of the island. And he was like, would he ever get into that kind of fabrication for people who were selling this to, that they have the option to have it? And I'm like, well, heck yeah. So be open to different ways to make money. But in all of these things, I think what Trudi and I want to say to you is, of course, be open, like I just said, but weigh the cost. Weigh the cost of infrastructure to do these things, weigh the cost of the time it costs your family, because it's going to take away from your family in some capacity. And you have to know, does that balance out? And for us this year with chickens, it didn't balance out, and we needed different time to be invested other places. And so just don't go do things just to do things.
On a whim. Me and Eric are the worst about doing things on a whim. We are doing so much better. But
that sometimes works, obviously. But at other times, does it cost you more money?
Absolutely. Or headaches. I mean, animals getting out because you didn't prepare enough for what you thought just so many circumstances where we just put our cart in front of our horse and went for it. And it didn't work out as well as it should have because we didn't plan ahead. Planning. Don't just fly by the seat of your pants. That it's going to hurt you in the end.
That's great advice. That's such good advice. All right, we are to the point of our podcast where we are going to get into the question. So every time we end our podcast, I ask Trudi a question, she asks me a question, we answer it. So we do not know what the questions are beforehand. They're off the cuff, and they're usually
random.
They're
so random.
Yeah. Random questions. All right, you go?
Yeah, sure. What was one of your fondest memories from living in North Dakota?
Oh my gosh. Did you know that this was my question back to you?
Shut up. No, it's not.
Yes, it is. That is exactly what I wanted to ask you. So you have to answer that one too. Oh, goodness.
We are not twins, just so we're clear. I'm way younger than her. Like, she's old.
Way younger. Geez.
Way younger. Okay, go ahead. Answer your question.
Okay. Fondest memory in North Dakota. I think... Okay, so the first time that I went out with my husband, he wasn't my husband at the time, and I helped his family move cattle. It's the fondest because it was a learning lesson for me about how my husband operates, but it was also like I enjoyed it at the end of the day. So we had to go move cattle and horseback. So everything was done on the ranch horseback. Ben's parents had four-wheelers, but once they moved to a different ranch, we did not operate that way. So anyway, we went out to move cows to a new pasture. I had never rode out there before, and my husband rode off and did not give me instructions. So me not knowing this pasture or directions, because again, had never been in it, I am like, well, I'm going to guess where we're pushing them and finding them. And I see his dad off in the distance after I started pushing cows going, like waving his arm like I'm pushing him the wrong way. And so I had to push him the right way. I think it's funny now, and why I say that's my fondest memory is because I enjoyed the process of moving cattle. So I think why that was one of my fondest memories was because it was my first experience of really getting to know the land that we were eventually ranching on, and it's so beautiful there, and I loved it. I used to actually, before I got involved with Ben and started dating him, I always thought that North Dakota, at least Western North Dakota, was ugly. And I think because Wisconsin is usually green, there's trees everywhere. In Western North Dakota, there's not many trees. And a lot of the time it's not green. It's a lot of yellow because of all of the things. But we lived on the edge of the Badlands. And I think that ride for me opened my eyes to how beautiful Western North Dakota actually was. And I think that's why it's the fondest memory. Also, I just want to caveat that whole story and say, what did I learn about my husband? He doesn't explain things very well. He's very quiet. And sometimes I have to say, spell this out. What do you need us to do? Don't just think we're going to know.
I mean, a good learning experience. Go work cattle with someone.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Or bison. It's really interesting.
Right. Trudi, this is for you. You have the same question. What is one of your fondest memories in North Dakota?
I'm not going to lie. I think fondest memories is being with all of my family. So mom and dad lived 11 miles from us, and we would have holidays with them. Every holiday we would be there, all of us. I mean, all the siblings except for Amanda, because sometimes she'd come from Wisconsin and sometimes she wouldn't. But
I usually wouldn't.
Right. And just having our kids grow up with my mom and dad, having that and just going and dropping off at my parents' house, and just hanging out with all of our family. Our kids got to grow up together. Like, their cousins were right down the road. They got to hang out with them. They hung out with grandma and grandpa, like all of the things. I think I loved that big family. Like, family is so important to me and Janelle, because that's just how we were raised. So fondest memory is just being able to go over to mom and dad's house and pull a dad and open the fridge and eat whatever's in there.
Yeah. Our parents' house, no matter how old we were, was just ours to do what we wanted.
Just show up.
I'm going to just tell everybody that I think all the time, and I know that Trudi entertains it, is like, if we could have a commune with my family, we would entertain that. Eric probably wouldn't.
No, Eric's all for that. He would love to live by you guys. It's me. I'm the one that won't live here. I leave here, and I'm not coming to Tennessee because it snows there. So
it barely snows. This is one time. It's probably going to snow next. That wraps up this episode of the Farmstead Revival, the Tales of Two Sisters. Thanks for joining along. Make sure that you go find us on Instagram. It is the Farmstead Revival. And you can find this podcast on any of your favorite streaming platforms. I think we're on all of them. We'll see you next week.